know Shaletta makes you laugh, but did you know Shaletta Brundage can also make you think and boost your business? Media personality, activist, and comedian Shaletta Brundage founded Shaletta Makes Me Laugh to celebrate and share the best of Black culture. It's a podcasting platform. You can download 10 weekly podcasts hosted by African-American subject experts at ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com is also a production house, creating broadcast quality commercial content. And Shaletta and her team of storytellers create powerful promotional campaigns to get businesses the brand awareness they're looking for. Some of Minnesota's top businesses trust Shaletta, and you can too. Get out the word about your events and products and get in front of communities of color with ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com. She's got the power to help your business.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Financially Fit Podcast. I am your host, Andre Creighton. As always, I'm excited to be here with you all today to talk about another fun topic, which I think is one of the most important topics that we will discuss, and that is self-sabotage. This is the silent business killer. I think many of you in the common belief is that the biggest business risk is cash shortage or competition or cybersecurity or maybe even economical changes, right? And the reality is yes, all of those things are challenges. You definitely need to be able to have the cash to be able to run the business. Obviously, you want to be able to compete with your competition. You want to be able to eliminate the risk of cybersecurity attacks. And obviously, you want to be prepared in case there are economical challenges that come to the surface. And the reality is that we can do a lot of pre-planning to try to mitigate some of those risks, but I still am a core believer that the biggest risk to a business is yourself. And I've been guilty of this too. I'm a founder myself, though I'm not an operator in the business anymore. I still have quite a bit of close touch to the organization and have my challenges as a founder. And then also, I work as a consultant CFO, so I get to work with entrepreneurs every single day across the country. So I get to see the good, the bad, the ugly with entrepreneurs, and also the growth that comes with as they continue to mature through their business. So, the reality that I would say is most businesses suffer because founders get in their own way, emotionally, mentally, and operationally. And I've been guilty of this in many different instances. I think, from an emotional standpoint, when you start something, that's your baby, right? So it's really hard for you to be able to delegate to others, and it's really hard to just let go. Mentally, as a founder, if you're not working late hours, the business doesn't move forward if you're not working, if you're taking time away, right? So mentally, it can be draining. And then obviously operationally, as you're trying to find product market fit, you're really trying to listen to your customers, consumers, and understand, is my hypothesis actually true based on what I'm seeing in the market and how people are responding to my product or service. So, at the end of the day, the mindset and habits of leaders set the ceiling for the business. And I think that's the most important thing. You want to have the right mindset and the right habits, and you want, if you're the leader of that organization as the founder or entrepreneur that started the company, you want to drive that through your culture within your business. So let's jump in and talk a little bit about the three behaviors of founders that threaten the business. So the first one that I want to talk about is avoidance and lack of financial awareness. So I feel like this is one of the biggest challenges of every founder because most times founders, entrepreneurs are very visionary. I happen to be a little bit different than most founders because I come from a financial background. So, I really let a lot of the numbers drive me. Sometimes maybe I even focus a little bit too much on the quantitative data and not enough on the qualitative data, right? And I think that for a business to function, there's a good, healthy balance. So, founders who don't look at books, ignore reports or avoid money conversations, like these are the behaviors of founders that drive a business into the ground. Like we have to be able to look at our books. We have to, pay attention to the reports and take that in a vacuum, right? Like I said, there is a world where you can be too dependent on the quantitative data instead of the qualitative data, and we want to find that healthy balance. What you refuse to measure will eventually control you, right? So you want to constantly be measuring your business and measuring the data that's coming within your business. At the end of the day, there's lots of data that comes into your business as an early stage founder or entrepreneur, and every piece of that data tells a story, right? And you want to understand that story, right? And continue to understand that your story is going to continue to grow and unfold. But what is that telling me today about my business? And a lot of founders tend to be avoidant to the bad news, and they want to share only the good news. And what I'll tell you is that I found the most successful founders lean into the bad news more than the good news. Like if there's good news, like yes, you should celebrate those milestones and be happy about where you've come, but you shouldn't be content, right? And I think oftentimes founders find it tough to share the bad news because they're worried about investor sentiment, or they're worried about whether they'll lose customers. And the reality is, like, there's always another investor, there's always another customer, right? But being honest and having that integrity to talk about the bad things is what makes a really, really strong founder. Fear-driven blindness, leads to late decisions. So, if you're fearful, you got to remember that the reason why you stepped out to start this business in the first place was because you took a risk, right? So you have to carry that risk appetite with you throughout your founder journey, understanding that obviously you want to start to mitigate those risks as you continue to grow the business, right? To alleviate some of that fear. But if you were fearful, you would not have started the journey in the first place. So, fear-driven financial blindness, it leads to late decision making, which leads to cash burn and panic hiring and reactionary moves. So we want to avoid being reactive, and be more proactive in our business. And all of these three characteristics lead to that avoidance and a lack of financial awareness that drives the business into the ground. Number two is ego-driven decisions. Um, I've met some founders that carry a bit of ego with them, and the reality is that when you are a founder, your business will find a way to humble you. So the sooner that you're willing to lean into that humbleness and take that head on, the better, because we all have an ego to an extent, right? And we don't want to let our ego drive our decisions within our business. We want to let data, we want to, whether quantitative or qualitative, drive where we're going in our business, how we continue to scale and grow. So some things you might hear from someone that is maybe ego driven is, I know what my customers need, and maybe they don't have the data or validation about that. That is tends to show that, like, there's probably ego at the center of that. Overpricing, overbuilding, overbranding, based on pride, not market, right? So um, you know the very the strongest founders, when you are growing your business and you reach that point of scale, the lights are on, right? Like, the lights are shining on you, people know who you are, you're becoming more prevalent in society as a entrepreneurial figure. And sometimes we let over branding ourselves, based on pride, dictate how we go to market or how we continue to drive the market. And sometimes that can be very detrimental to our company and organization. I think that's why sometimes you see founders, after years, they'll step away and maybe they'll move into like a board seat, where now they actually have someone that maybe didn't start with the company driving the company forward into that next phase of growth. A lot of times that has to do with the fact that founders can't let go of their ego, and they want to see the business be successful, but they don't know how to set their ego aside to be able to let the business grow naturally or organically, right? Refusing to pivot even when signs are clear. I will tell you that, in my time as a founder, we pivoted pretty quickly. We went to market as a B2C company, and we pivoted to B2B very quickly after our launch. We still do a lot of B2C work, but we found that B2B was going to be more fruitful in the early stages of our company to help drive sustainable growth. And but I will tell you also that there have been times in our company where maybe we didn't pivot as soon as we should have in other areas. And a lot of that was driven by, I wouldn't say necessarily solely ego, but yes, there's some ego in there because at the end of the day, you had a hypothesis. You had a belief that this is how the product should work, this is how it should be sold in the marketplace, and the marketplace maybe tells you something different. Like that is hard. That's hard to make that pivot sometimes when you have to admit candidly that you were wrong. Um, and then lastly, like founder identity tied to being right is greater than being profitable. So um, if you hear, and maybe you have a partner in this that's also a founder, and you hear them say like, "I'm right," and they say that very often, like that's likely because they're being driven by ego, right? Uh, at the end of the day, uh, the want to be right should not be greater than the want to be profitable. And I think that if we can keep that at the core and the center of what we're doing to drive our business forward, that will help us remove some of those ego-driven decisions that drive our companies into the dirt. Number three is burnout and decision fatigue. So, exhausted founders make emotional, short term, and survival driven decisions. Been there, done that. Like, I've been burnt out. I've been in survival mode and made decisions based on survival. And the reality is that when you are in survival, you're not thinking clearly, right? Um, I also will say that sometimes when I've been in survival, that's when I've done my best work because I know that my back is against the wall and like I have to be hyper focused on what am I going to do to drive revenue to continue to grow this company, or else we won't be a company in a year or 6 months or whatever it may be. So um, at the core of it, exhaustion is the core of what drives decision fatigue. So we want to make sure that we are giving ourselves the proper amount of time away from the business to regroup and rethink and re-envision and also reimagine like why do we even start and where are we going? So here's the trap: burnout doesn't just hurt you, it quietly sabotages a business. So, that is the trap that most founders fall into. And that's why 95% of founders and businesses don't make it past year one. It's because they burn out too fast uh, and they've quietly sabotaged the business. So here are some signs that burnout and decision fatigue are prevalent in your organization. Maybe you're making poor hiring decisions. Maybe there's inconsistent pricing. Maybe there's reactionary spending, avoidance, or even loss of vision. Maybe you are so into the weeds that you don't even know where you're going anymore. Or maybe you're so into the weeds that you haven't celebrated the small wins that you have had, right? So burnout and decision fatigue are a real thing, and it's something that continues to drive a lot of companies into the ground. So we talked about really three things that sabotage businesses, and that's avoidance and lack of financial awareness. Number two is ego-driven decisions, and number three is burnout and decision fatigue. So I think just like with your physical fitness, the biggest threat to your health isn't sugar, carbs, or Netflix. It's your own discipline. It's the habits. It's the mindset, right? Um, because the discipline, the habits, and the mindset are what drives you from eating less sugar or eating less carbs or maybe taking time and not watching as much Netflix and focusing on the business, right? Or maybe focusing on your physical fitness, right? So the core of this is we have to be disciplined. We have to create great habits and we have to create a great mindset. And the reality is those things don't happen overnight. It is you have to be intentional every single day when you wake up to say, today I'm going to be disciplined. Today I'm going to create great habits. Today I'm here's my mindset and here's what I'm focusing on to drive my business forward. Your business finances are the same. It's not the market, It's not the economy. It's not your competitors. It's your ability to make clear, informed, and healthy decisions. I'm going to say that one more time. It is not your business finances. It's not your marketing. It's not the economy, and it's not your competitors. It's your ability to make clear, informed, and healthy decisions that are going to continue to drive your company forward. So let's talk about how to become your business's strongest assets. And there's really four steps that I see. One, face the numbers weekly. Awareness over avoidance is very key. We want to be aware of what's happening in our business. We want to understand it. We want to understand it enough where I don't have to have a paper in front of me. I can speak to the metrics of my business if anyone were to ask, whether that's an investor, whether that's another business partner, whether that is a customer. We want to be able to speak to the numbers on a weekly basis without having a paper in front of us. Number two is separate emotion from decision. So data driven, not ego driven. We want to make data driven decisions. This is core to how we grow our business. Number three is protect your energy and decision capacity. So you can protect your energy and your decision capacity by getting adequate sleep, by having calendar discipline, by having structured thinking time, right? Time where you're away, where you can truly think about the business without interruption and make it in order for you to make sound decisions when you get into the boardroom or where you're meeting with other people across your business and cross functioning divisions. You want to make sure that you have structured thinking time and you have calendar discipline. I've been very guilty in my time as a founder of the calendar discipline, because when you're a founder, you want to take every meeting possible, right? You want to meet people because you never know when that's going to turn into an opportunity. But the reality is that no one knows the business better than you, and you want to make sound decisions. And a part of that is making sure that you have the calendar discipline to think through what those decisions may be. And then the last one is invite accountability. So advisors, finance coaches, peer founders, CFO guidance, like you want to invite accountability into your business. You want to invite those that can help provide more accountability than more than the accountability that you provide to yourself already. So with that being said, I'm going to leave you with a couple of reflection exercises. Where are you currently making decisions emotionally instead of financially? I'll say that one more time. Where are you currently making decisions emotionally instead of financially? What business decisions are you avoiding because you're afraid of what you might find out? And this is a huge one. People may know that there's bad things in their business and they avoid it because they're afraid to face and find out what actually is happening. And if you don't know, you can't fix, right? So we want to find out right away, like what are the bottlenecks, what are the problems within our business that are stopping us from getting to that scale or that growth. And then the last thing is, what's one thing you need to stop doing as a founder and one thing you need to start doing? So as you go into the new year, I want you to think about that. What is one thing that you could stop doing, and what is one thing that you could start doing? So to close, the financial fitness of your business begins with the financial fitness of its leader. So what your leader shows and what you do as a leader is going to trickle down to those within your company. So we want to make sure that we are being financially fit as a leader within our company and being good stewards of our business. So I really enjoy working with founders. Like it's really cool to see the different personalities, to see how people think about growth, to see how people think about the challenges within in their business, and then how they attack those things. And I think the one consistent thing that I see with a lot of founders is the grit and will to not back down. That is the single most important thing that continues to drive businesses forward. I saw a company that they're not a client of mine. There's a local company called Smackin', and they basically built a product suite of sunflower seeds, and it took them several years to find product market fit. And now they're being sold across the country in various retail stores, from Target to Dick's Sporting Goods to Walmart, et cetera, right? So, but the core to that is like they stuck with it. They had the will to go beyond what was stopping them from getting into those stores, right? From getting to that scale. They had the grind and the will to not give up. And I think that's the core to every founder. So, with that being said, as I always say, it's not about how much money you make. The power is in how much money you keep. Thank you so much for tuning into the Financially Fit Podcast. I am your host, Andre Creighton. And as always, I'm excited to be here with you all. And I look forward to the next episode of Financially Fit.
I drew you this year.
Oh, I love scratch games. Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome, Tabitha.
They're so sparkly.
Festive, right?
You know it's a good gift when it's hard to let it go.
Kinda wish I drew myself.
Kinda glad you didn't.
Holiday scratch games from the Minnesota Lottery are great to give and even better to get.
So thoughtful.
I know.
Ready to go? At Metro Transit, we are. With more routes to more places, easy ways to pay, and more convenient options, we're ready to go further. Go easier. Go faster. Go, go, go. And go. We're ready to go. Are you?
Okay, so you wanted to apply for that Promise Act grant for your business when it first came out, right? But you didn't have your stuff together, so you did not qualify. Well, today is your lucky day, honey, because round 2 is happening right now, and there is $60 million up for grabs for entrepreneurs in greater Minnesota, parts of Minneapolis, and St. Paul. But here's some of the things that you got to have before you can apply. Now, you gotta be registered with the Minnesota Secretary of State, generate less than $750,000 in annual revenue, and you got to have your 2024 taxes filed. More of that eligibility criteria can be found at mnpromiseact.org. So go online and get ready so you can go out there and get this money. The deadline to apply is December 14th.